Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining Annex Cloud's webinar, Using Personalization to Your Advantage, How to Get Emotional with Loyalty. My name is Brian Kovac. I'm sitting in for our VP of Growth here at Annex Cloud, Aaron Reese, and we're joined by our guest speaker, Mary Pilecki, the VP and Principal Analyst at Forrester. We also have an expert panel led by Global Digital Commerce Head from TaylorMade, Yanni Yesin, and Managing Director of Integrated Loyalty Solutions from Concentrix Catalyst, Jody Roush. Today's agenda, we're going to cover personalization and loyalty is a prerequisite. And Mary's going to go through her expert research and insights. And then we're going to look into how to build a zero-party data strategy. We're going to then look at best practices for personalization. And then we're going to have a panel discussion, getting our experts' thoughts and insights. And at the end, we're going to have a Q&A session. Feel free to use the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom screen to type in any ideas that you have during the presentation. With that, let's go, Mary.
Thanks so much, Brian. I'm very excited to be here because personalization is one of my big research topics, and it's a bugaboo for me. This sounds like it could sound to some of you as a very bold statement, but I believe that in loyalty, personalization is a prerequisite. And I believe that for a bunch of reasons, but I have some data to back it up. Consumers want to feel special. So this is data from our 2022 benchmark survey at Forrester, over 70,000 US online adults. And of those who belong to a loyalty program, 65% say it's very important that they get special offers that aren't available to just anybody. And over half of them, 51%, say that a key reason they join loyalty programs is to get messages, offers, promotions that are more relevant to them. And in fact, if you send irrelevant promotional emails, your loyalty members may unsubscribe. We ask them to agree or disagree with this statement that they often unsubscribe from loyalty program promotional emails when the content's not relevant. And you can see this is across 6 countries. But in the US, it's nearly half, 47%, and it goes as high as 67% in Metro China, who say they will unsubscribe. So you're not only losing opportunities to make your members more loyal, to get them to purchase more, but you're actually driving them away if you don't personalize. There's other great reasons to personalize. So McKinsey & Company has some great data that they surveyed and found about the success that personalization brings. And it brings better performance and outcomes. So they say that companies that are really good at personalization generate 40% more revenue than average players. And personalization can drive up to a 25% lift in revenue. It also improves your customer satisfaction because customers expect companies to personalize to them, and 76% of them get frustrated when this doesn't happen. And finally, personalization helps increase your loyalty. 78% of consumers said they're more likely to repurchase when they receive personalized communications. And digitally native brands said that 53% of sales were actually linked to loyalty members. So lots of good reasons to personalize. But the challenge is you can only really personalize experiences for consumers that you recognize and that you understand. And we have a big data problem today that's getting only bigger. It's called data deprecation, which I'm sure you're familiar with. But it's a combination of factors, the privacy regulations that are growing across the world. Some device firms like Apple are blocking ad tracking software to protect consumer privacy. And the biggest concern of marketers is the fact that cookies are going away, the third-party cookie. And Google has continually delayed the date that they're making these go away. But bottom line, marketers are losing access to the data they've been using for years to target their customers and to really use for personalization. So what do? You have to create a loyalty data strategy that focuses on these 3 dimensions, and I'll go through each of them briefly for you. It's important to shift your approach to understand your customer, learn what makes them tick, how they feel about you, and why they're loyal to you. So the first dimension of the strategy is customer behaviors, and you're probably all collecting this now. These are the actions customers take with your brand. So it's their purchase behavior, it's whether or not they refer friends and family to your brand, it's the frequency of it, how much they spend. It's whether they redeem rewards. It's there's lots of information and that's available through your loyalty program and your loyalty technology. But as important as behavioral data is emotional data. So how the consumer feels about the brand when they interact with you or your products and services is just as important, because emotions actually drive those behaviors that you're after. And so we know at Forrester that consumers who feel appreciated by a brand, using that particular sentiment, they feel appreciated, are significantly more likely to stay with the brand, to buy more, and to refer their friends and family. So it's important to establish a baseline with either customer sentiment analysis or survey-based methods to understand how your customers are feeling about your brand. And then the last dimension of this are the customer perceptions, their preferences, their interests. And this is data that you can collect from them directly. So, how do they want to connect with you? Is it via text or email or direct mail or in person? What kind of diet do they have? Are they a vegan? Are they a pescatarian? Do they have pets? There's tons of information you can collect. You should only collect what you will use, but all this data is important to be meshed in with the rest with your behavioral data, your emotional data, so that you're really getting a full, broad understanding of the customer. So to do this, you need to build a zero-party data strategy. And this is something that loyalty programs are doing to the nth degree now. They really enable safe and accurate data collection. And what zero-party data is actually first-party data, but that is willingly, intentionally, and proactively shared with a brand by the customer. Often this is done in exchange for some sort of value, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But it's all this data that I talked about. And remember, this is way better data than your third-party data, than your cookie data, because it's coming directly from your customers. It's not inferred. And we have some data from a survey we did in Q1 of this year of CMOs, and we asked them, are they collecting more first-party data? And 76% said yes, and 72% are implementing zero-party data experiences. And I'll explain what that is in a minute. But this chart tells you why a customer would share more personal information, what kind of value they're after. And it has data from the UK, the US, and Australia. And you can see the data across the different countries is fairly similar, but the top reason, top motivator to share more personal data is cash rewards. And that, so that's discounts or cash back on your purchases. And that's followed by loyalty program points, or that could be miles, whatever the currency is, and free product samples. And when you look at these are really financial rewards. These all have some financial value. But in addition, they're willing to share information in exchange for what we think about as experiential value. So better customer service, ad-free content, and early access to new products. Nike's a brand that does this in their sneaker club, that their most loyal members get early access to the latest and greatest sneaker that's coming out. So let's look at just a couple of examples about how you collect and leverage zero-party data. It's often done just with a survey. And here's the North Face. They have a great loyalty program called Explorer Pass. And when you join, they give you this very quick survey that just asks, are you male or female? That will help them make the right clothing recommendations and product recommendations. But then they ask about the types of activities that really interest you. Is it strength training? Is it indoor rock climbing or outdoor rock climbing? Is it snowboarding? So again, they can personalize their recommendations to you. A very simple survey. A Day is a fashion brand that makes sustainably made clothing. And they have a quiz on their website that takes a couple of minutes to fill out. They say it's 2 minutes. These are some of the questions on it, but they ask, how you like your clothing to be fitted. What's your go-to outfit? What do you bring with you? Where do you spend your day? Are you on Zoom like me? So you don't care about, I only care about the top half of my clothing. That's my fashion, is the top half. So once you fill this out, they will immediately give you what they call a doer capsule. And this is a set of recommendations of clothing that they have available that matches those preferences you've just described to them. So another very easy and kind of fun way to collect the data. So, with your data strategy, you need to, frame up, you need to take all these dimensions of your data and frame it into a collection. And the first way to do that is to fold your zero-party data into your broader data strategy. So it then becomes part of your three-dimension data strategy. So look at what you already know, and what additional information do you need to improve customer experiences. And that's what you're going to go out and ask for in your zero-party data experiences. Make sure you deliver a clear value exchange for the data. So what are you offering and how are you going to use this data? I can't emphasize enough, do not collect data you will never use. The customer will notice and they'll stop giving you data. And then the last thing is when you're capturing the data, you want to build experiences that are really transparent. Customers know you're collecting their data. They know they're giving it to you. So be careful about it. Don't ask for too much at one time. What are the 1 to 2 data points you need right away? And then be sure to deliver benefits for it as quickly as possible, so that they see the good reasons for sharing the data. Now we'll move on to the last section of best practices. So personalization at Forrester, we talk about as a spectrum. On one end of the spectrum, we have mass marketing, which we've been doing for many, many years. And on the other end, we have individualization and moments-based marketing. So that's marketing actually in the moment with context, maybe with the weather or the time of day or where the consumer is. And I would say the slight majority of brands are still at basic segmentation, but most of them are moving very rapidly into advanced segmentation, where they have lots of dynamic segments, and they're being reactive to those segments, and they're using lots of data to figure out to do that segmentation. But ultimately, where you want to consider going is to individualization, which is, an infinite segment of one. It's very predictive and it uses all kinds of psychographic, contextual, social data. But when you're personalizing, you want to make sure that the customer is at the center of your efforts. So, always ask the question, how will this personalization add value to the customer? And these are the 4 primary ways you can add value. And customers looking for this. Are you informing them, helping them out? Are you simplifying things by guiding them? Are you advising them on something they hadn't thought about or they need help with? And are you showing that you care about them? Empathy is still sort of a new thought in marketing, but consumers really want to feel that they have a connection with the brand. So we'll do a couple of examples here. And I took a page from Hanny's book from My Tailor Made. Tailor Made actually has a subscription program at 3 levels, the free and the champion and legend, where you get a lot of different benefits for your membership. But on the personalization side, as a champion, you get personalized performance insights on your golfing, your swing, etc. And then if you're a legend, in the legend tier, you get that plus a lot of other things. And you also have available this virtual swing analysis and coaching, which is really cool because if you're spending a lot for a golf club, you want to be making sure you're using it correctly and getting the most out of your swing. So this really focuses on the informing and the advising side of the customer. A really simple example is Zappos. I made a purchase from them in July. They sent me a confirmation email, and then a couple of days later, they said, your order's been shipped. They remind me, what I ordered, how much it cost, and when it's expected to arrive, and a tracking number to track it. And then when it came here, they actually sent me an email and said, hooray, it's arrived early. So they're touting their own horn, but saying, hey, we got it to you early. And it also was a cue for me to go up and check my front steps. So it isn't taken off the front steps. But here they're informing me and they're showing that they care about me. And that makes you feel good as a consumer. And then finally, CVS makes things very simple. They guide you. So whether you're purchasing in store or online, you get a receipt that will tell you how much you spent that trip, how much you saved that trip through the loyalty program, and how much you've saved that year, which is a reminder of the value of the program, which is good for CVS and good for you as a customer. So this is informing and guiding. So those are just some examples of good personalization. But there are 3 R's to personalization. You have to be careful and make sure you deliver relevance, build emotional resonance, and show restraint. And so relevance, we understand. Don't send me, make sure you have your data accurate, and don't send me an offer for cat food when you know I have a dog and I don't have a cat. Right? But build emotional resonance. So there's an opportunity in personalization because you know so much about the consumer to show that you care about them. And you might even, send a message that says, we know this is a tough time. Inflation's really high. The gas prices are high, whatever the situation is, and saying, we have this special offer for you. But it's showing that you understand a little bit about what they're going through and you're empathizing with them. But also show restraint. So listen to your customers, ask them for their preferences. What channel do they want to go through? What, how frequently do they want communications, and don't, and abide by what they say. If they say they don't want to hear from you more than once a month, don't contact them more than once a month because you're just going to turn them away. So with this stronger understanding of your customers, who they are as people, why they're loyal to you in the first place, you can really cultivate a full culture of loyalty. Loyalty companies care about customer relationships. And so this strategy has to be part of your entire corporate strategy and your corporate mission. So just sort of in summary, to elevate loyalty to this status, you really need to work beyond your silos. So use the data you collect across the company, and operate as one marketing team, and not one for each product line, or one for loyalty members versus non-loyalty members. Make sure the experience is simple and actually engaging to do. Consumers want something consistent, they want to know what to expect, and they want it to be simple. And then remember, it's a two-way street, so you have to have that value exchange. And in many cases, it doesn't need to be financial value like points. All it has to be is a relevant communication that the customer really wants to pay attention to. And then finally, when you're thinking about you're collecting your data and your personalization strategy, make sure you're embedding the idea of the great customer experience into everything you do across loyalty and the entire customer lifecycle. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Brian.
Thank you, Mary. Every single slide had so much packed into it. So let's give us a chance to open up to the panel. Let's get some thoughts from the panel, starting with Hani. Do you have any aha moments coming out of this presentation?
Yes, I mean, several of them. I mean, the one that kind of is top of mind with all this is it's not easy to do if you think about the data side of things here. This is actually pretty hard stuff, and I think we've been trying to build a strategy around this over months and years. It's not something that you can pull together kind of overnight. So part of me wants to jump to the end and do all the cool stuff with personalization, but just getting the data organized and normalized and useful. And as Mary says, it takes the entire village. And if you do this in a silo, it just won't work, because especially in our business, we have touch points offline, we have touch points online. It's a very intimate product. If you go get fit for a golf club, it's your spec, and your spec is very different than the next person's spec. So, our business calls for this and needs this. It's just being smart about how we go about doing it, set realistic expectations of how to build a plan to get to the end state is really what kind of resonates. And we are on that path, and it's nice to hear that kind of confirming that path. But I think everyone needs to kind of think about it over months and years, not like it's an easy thing to go do tomorrow.
And it's true that not only is the data siloed, but sometimes the teams are siloed. Loyalty teams are often completely on their own, and they're not fully integrated with the entire enterprise. So, Jody, what are your thoughts? Any aha moments from you?
Oh, for sure. Always aha moments when we chat with Mary. I will admit that. I have to agree with everything that Hani just said. It is hard. I think one of the other things that really resonated with me throughout this entire presentation is we're talking about personalization today, but similar to teams being siloed and data being siloed, et cetera, personalization, you don't want to think of that as a silo either. And personalization is so integrated with what you are doing in general with loyalty and with membership. So when I think back to the slide that Mary shared about, what are customers and members willing to exchange data for? And the highest one, of course, was cash rewards. And everyone will always exchange things for cash and for discounts. That's kind of the gimme. I think what we're really starting to see, though, is that a lot of brands and organizations are becoming less willing to give up that margin just for a quick hit and somebody's email address. Is that you really want, that's transactional loyalty, and it's fleeting, which means the next time someone offers them another discount, they're going to go to that brand. It's not building that emotional connection. And when you look at the other items on Mary's chart, where it's exclusive products or it's special experiences, that's where you start making more of that psychological relationship tie and building that emotional loyalty, so that regardless of what other discounts someone else may serve up to them, they're coming back to you because not only did you build that emotional loyalty with them through something other than just a discount, that tie, that relationship side, but you're doing it in a personalized manner. And it then also ties back to Mary's in her last section about being carefully treat how you tend to personalization. It needs to have that emotional resonance. So that emotional side of things kind of flows through all of this and everything that you do with loyalty. So I think that every time we start talking about the various aspects of things that you can do with your members, different ways that you can communicate with them, and especially when we talk about personalization, it's a reminder that there are common threads throughout everything within membership, and that you can't ignore the rest of membership and just pay attention to personalization. It all has to be one big kind of thought process as well.
I love that, Jody. And a growing trend is values-based buying. In
Yes.
2020, 40% of US online adults said that they regularly purchase from brands that have values that align with their own. And in 2021 and 2022, that jumped to 48%. Consumers are more and more looking to spend their money carefully and with brands that have values about sustainability or about helping the community, or even keeping their data private. A value that came out during the pandemic was proving that you treat your employees well as a brand. That's really important. So, and that's a great way to, as long as you're authentic about your values, it's a great way to try to make that emotional connection.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think the authenticity, if the authenticity isn't there, you're not going to build the emotional connection, no matter how many exclusive and wonderful experiences you give people. If it's forced and it doesn't feel authentic, you're going to miss the boat. It's a great point.
Yeah, I'll just add that one of our brand values at TaylorMade is this concept of golf to mystic. So
I like that.
It's one of these things where we're trying to be more approachable to all golfers of all abilities, and it's pretty cool. Our CMO came up with that kind of concept around connecting at not just an equipment level, but just the emotion you get of hitting a great golf shot, whether it's with our clubs or not, and really kind of interweaving that into our culture here around. We get to go play golf for a living and get to do fun stuff, and let's not forget about that. And everybody who consumes our products and plays the game kind of has that common feeling. So very, very similar with a similar thread where you guys are going, like we're trying to make it part of our culture around the joy of the game type of thing.
I love that.
So Hani, you started by saying this is not very easy. So if it's not easy, how are you approaching it?
Yeah, I mean, it's all, crawl, walk, run. I think we have a pretty successful loyalty program, and from as Jody said, transactional loyalty, check the box. I think we kind of have all that. We have membership, we have, the communication and all those types of things and all the metrics that you would measure a loyalty program on. I think we're kind of doing well there. I think the next step now is to build kind of a personalization strategy around loyalty, and that includes how we acquire consumers and how we treat them on our global websites. And again, this is a global thing we're trying to do here, which adds different complexities depending on where you are in the world. To post purchase, right? And how do we reach back out to you? How do we ask, like, how did your product come? Is it everything you wanted it to be? How are you hitting the ball? So there's the kind of the journey map that we're trying to map out now around. If you look at the entire journey of a consumer, are we kind of connecting with them on a personal level? Each one of those kind of emotional moments of a journey, right? So that's really where we are now. I think where it goes is, like I mentioned earlier, we have a pretty intimate relationship with our consumers, like that. Especially most of our golf clubs are custom at this point, where we're building the club for Jody, for Brian, to your spec. And I think there's a lot of power to unlock there, as we are we have all this intimate data to go build you a golf club. What are we going to do with it next, and how to kind of cross market to you, and how do we send you articles and send you experiences that matter because we know you so well. And that's the part that where it gets hard, right? How do you connect all these disparate kind of data sources into one, and then build kind of a I'll call it a marketing journey. Marketing is maybe the wrong word, more of just a journey with these consumers that matters at the relevant points, throughout the lifetime value of them being a member of our team tailor-made, as we call it, right? So that's the next step, but I think we have some of the fundamentals in place. I think we do need kind of a stronger, data strategy, and we can do everything once really well, but can we do it every day?
Right.
365 is kind of a gap that we have to go kind of figure out. And
is it scalable?
Yeah, exactly. And we do run a global business, so those are the challenges that are kind of right in our next step. But I do feel like we kind of know the next step, if you know what I mean. It's not like we're searching for that, which this conversation's kind of confirmed some of those things that we are doing.
Great. Yeah, I like to, Hanny, that you guys are being the way that you describe it, you're being very intentional about it, number one. And number two, from how you have described it, you're using the data that you collect. And I think that's one thing that needs to be kind of called out here really explicitly, is that if you're going to ask people for data in exchange for something, or even if you're just going to ask them for data, whether or not there's a value exchange or not, if you are capturing data from your clients, your customers, your members, and I would say tailor-made, it doesn't have to be every data point, because you may not use each and every piece of the spec that you have for me. But if someone asks me what my interests are, in the example that Mary shared from the North Face, if you're going to go to the time and effort to ask me what my interests are, I tell you what my interests are, and then you send me content and information about everything but what I checked the box for, you're going to lose my interest really, really, really quickly. Or if you just don't send me anything that feels like you're even trying to hit on any of those boxes, and it just feels very mass marketing, then I step back as a consumer, and maybe I'm an over-informed consumer because we live in this space. But I look at emails that I get and I'm like, well, I'm willing to bet this is the same email that I got from everyone else. So why did I bother answering any of your questions? And then I kind of check out. When it feels personal to me, when it goes back to that, whether it's the segmentation that makes it feel like it's addressing me specifically, or it is all the way towards the individualism, if it feels like you're talking to me and you're addressing me specifically, I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to be more likely to open that email because you're addressing who I am and what I want. So my 2 cents there. I think the other thing I would add, what makes it hard is, how are you capturing that data? North Face talks, Mary showed in that example, after you sign up, you get all of those pieces, right? You get that information right away to check the boxes. How do you continue to capture data? And that's one thing that we work with a lot of our clients on, is setting up progressive profiling, so that if there are additional things that you want to learn along the way throughout their journey, is that it, again, feels authentic, it feels genuine, it feels part of the relationship as I'm getting to know you, my customer, better, my member better. How do I ask you questions? And how does it feel like something that it doesn't feel cumbersome? It's not like a 20-page survey of giving you all of my information. It's, what are you looking forward to this spring? What are you most excited about this fall? Sometimes asking little questions like that are ways of starting to identify, oh, this is this sort of a consumer. It may give you hints as to whether or not I live in an urban or a rural area. It may give you more insights as to whether or not I have children in the household. Little things like that really start to help craft the message and craft the relationship, where if you just come out and say, do you have kids? I may be less likely to answer that question.
Right.
And so how do you do that carefully and intentionally?
Yeah, we have it even a different, so we have strategic partners like Dick's Sporting Goods and World Wide Golf, where a lot of our equipment is sold, and we don't own that customer, right?
Right.
we don't necessarily have the right to go say, hey, how's your purchase? So we have to kind of navigate that offline to online,
Mhm.
and thread that a little bit carefully, as we don't want to upset our partners. But we
Right.
also own the warranty on that club, right? So that does give us kind of a right to message them and encourage them to tell us, where did you buy it? Are you enjoying it? So, the direct to consumer customer, I think, is a little bit easier to kind of, have a right to go ask for data. You have
Yep.
a lot more reasons to do that. For us, it's more clubs are probably sold in wholesale.
Right.
And a trick for us is how do we kind of do that, right? So one thing we have done is this concept of product registration, and tying it to our loyalty program. So if you come and register your club, we'll give you, 150 points. You create an account. So at least we get your email, your first name, last name, and, hopefully we give you points enough to come at least browse our site. But that's also a pretty big challenge for us is how do we,
Sure.
besides going after kind of the warranty reason, is there other reasons to kind of connect these data sources that we don't control? Because that is part of our total journey, right? We can't ignore
Right.
the fact that people want to go touch and feel a $600 driver before they purchase it directly
Yep.
from us, right?
Absolutely. Well, and I think too, one of the things, and I feel like maybe we've had a similar conversation before, is you truly are the golf expert. Now I'm sure that there are people at Dixon and other wholesale partners of yours who are great at golf, and they help people, in whatever department, whether it's in clothing or picking out clubs, etc. But you're an authority, and so you have that ability. When they come and they register, you now have their email address. You have the ability to share content with them that maybe they can't get elsewhere. And I think content is so frequently overlooked as a great way to pull people in and to feel that personal connection with the brand, where I want to come in and I want to see what do you have on the site as tips and hints for me, that maybe I can maybe see a video at Dick's as well, but why wouldn't I go directly to TaylorMade, because this is all that you do. And this is what you are experts for. You also have access to, TaylorMade sponsored athletes, which, Dick's doesn't have that, or other retailers don't have that, not to pick on Dick's, but, I feel like that is where a lot of brands who do sell both direct to consumer and through retail partners, that's where you have a leg up, because you own that space. That is yours. And it's such a great way to become kind of the go-to for your members.
I completely agree. I think there is a comfort in going to the OEM or going to the authority of who built the club versus the third party, for sure. And once we know who you are, we can craft. We have a pretty cool spot on our site called the Clubhouse, where we curate content constantly there. Whether it's interviews with Tiger Woods or just how to hit a chip shot. Again, as you tell us more about yourself, we can start sending you like, hey, we noticed you bought a couple of wedges. Here's a tip and trick on how to kind of know what bounce does on the bottom of a wedge. If you're a golfer, you know what that means, right?
Who doesn't need that tip if they're a golfer? I'm sorry,
Right.
every golfer needs that.
Right.
Well, if I can interject here,
Yeah.
I just want to kind of tie some things back up that I've been hearing as we've been talking. And one of them is Mary brought up the idea of a full personalization spectrum. And Hani mentioned how the that it's not easy, and you're crawling and walking and running. And when you think about it, you're continually building your ability as you build on your profiles. You have more data to work with, and then you can move along the personalization spectrum and do more with it. If you break out of the silos and look at the entire experience or the entire journey, as Hani was mentioning. This has been fabulous. Let's take a moment. Let's jump over to the attendees, and let's open it up and see if we have some live questions.
It looks like we have one in the Q&A from Jeff Fisher. The terms loyalty and membership are being used almost synonymously. Membership can, like the TaylorMade example, have a cost, like Amazon Prime. Some may not have a cost associated. When a customer is buying into the program, is that loyalty? Are these words synonymous? I'd like your POV.
Yeah, I mean, just to answer from a TaylorMade point of view, we do kind of run them a little bit separate. Like the example Mary gave is our My TaylorMade Plus subscription business. That is the business case and the value prop is a little bit different around the loyalty piece in itself. There is a free version of that you can, we want you to join and kind of look around. Ultimately, the goal of that program is to drive subscriptions and build kind of a subscription business. There are some really cool features that offer, we offer to really help you build your game within that subscription space. We had some pretty good debates when we launched My TaylorMade Plus around, is it loyalty, is it not loyalty? Like I said, we kind of treat them a little bit separate. They are tightly connected, but they have different kind of goals, if you know what I mean. So to answer your question, I do think within our building, membership really means subscription, and loyalty really means loyalty, if you know what I mean. We'll see how it goes in the future. It might tie together here. We're kind of getting our hands wet with the subscription stuff right now. So we'll see how it blends.
Yeah, and I love the question, because when I think about loyalty, say a loyalty program, the people that belong, that have signed up for the program, whether it's free or whether it has a cost to it, I think of those people as members, right, of the program, versus non-members who may be loyal to the company or the brand, but aren't signed up for that specific program. So that's why I use those terms interchangeably. But I think there are a lot of different thoughts on it. I think what's important is that just within your own organization, you define your metrics and you define your vocabulary. What does it mean to brand X to be a member versus not? We have some research on devotees, which are your very most loyal customers. And so you might have, a segment of those. But for me, it's whether or not you're part of a program.
Yep.
Jody, did you have a perspective?
Yeah, I think we treated very similarly, Mary. I mean, I think a couple nuances. Sometimes we use them interchangeably. We also very much think of loyalty as an outcome. A lot of times when people are signing up for your program, no matter what kind of program it is, probably not usually a paid program right off the bat, but when they're signing up for a free program, they haven't necessarily become loyal to your brand yet, to your program and to your organization. But loyalty is the outcome of the actions that we take within this program. I also like to think of, when we think about members, and Mary, I'm right there with you. When you join a loyalty program, we still call you a member. So it is, in essence, membership. We also think about the fact that, when you are part of a family, you are a family member. You are a member of a community. All of these different uses of the word member outside of necessarily a loyalty program. And what we really want, as we're talking about, and not to harp on it, but we do talk about it a lot at Concentrix Catalyst, is it's more than just discounts, it's more than just cash rewards. You want to be building that emotional loyalty. So how do you make someone feel like they are part of the brand? How do you make them feel like they are part of the brand community? And that's treating them more of a member as someone who simply has provided their email address.
Yeah, I mean, we have this concept of Team TaylorMade, right? And that everybody from Tiger Woods down to, someone who's never purchased from us, as long as they come to our site, like no matter what you do, we want you part of this community called Team TaylorMade, right? And then you have segments of those, the loyalty folks, the subscription folks, the whatever you want to call it. But yeah, the concept of we want you part of our family is certainly all encompassing.
Yes. Because
Go ahead.
Hanny, the way that you described it too, in your first response, is it sounds like that's your internal kind of vocabulary of loyalty is the free, membership is the paid. but I'm willing to bet that you don't necessarily make that differentiation in any of your client-facing, customer-facing materials. So I appreciate kind of the difference between the semantics of how you're defining it internally versus how you're treating people, because I think
Yeah, that's fair to the end consumer. I'm not sure they even know the difference.
Right.
Just how you
Jody,
run
what about-
those programs and how you execute on them. There's a little bit of nuance there.
Right.
Jody, you had mentioned metrics, and one of our attendees asked the question, what are the metrics you use to track whether a loyalty program or experiment is successful?
Well, our data tells us that brands use a ton of different metrics. And, there's no one single loyalty metric, but, they look at increased sales, they look at customer engagement, at advocacy, at increased frequency of purchase, or increased order size. There's a ton of things. It really depends on your objectives. But one of the metrics that's really coming back into vogue is customer lifetime value, and determining how valuable is this customer now, where can they be in the spectrum of lifetime value. And when you think about it, a customer who makes periodic purchases from you, but refers friends and family to your brand, has a higher lifetime value than a customer who makes that same level of purchasing but doesn't refer. So there's a lot of things that go into it. And Jody, if you have a magic metric, I'd love to hear it.
I wish I had a magic metric. But I would agree. When you're thinking about campaigns or specific activities, I do think it varies wildly based on what your objective is of running that campaign or that initiative. When it comes to a loyalty program or a membership program, just in general, we are seeing definitely much more of a shift to the customer lifetime value, or the member lifetime value, as we've started referring to it as. I think traditionally people look at, retention is a big one, especially when it is much more of a transactional program. If you're keeping people around, apparently you're still offering them the best discount on the block. I think also a lot of people look at, again, to Mary's point, referrals, and a lot of people also look at your purchase size.
Yeah.
So are you
Yeah,
willing, do you
enrichment.
want to add something else to the basket, or do you want to come one more time a year? But that again can be so skewed by, am I also a retailer that is constantly sending out 40% off offers, or really rich discounts because I'm trying to move merchandise. So depending what kind of industry you're in and how you're treating your membership program, it could vary wildly.
Yeah, I think there's the transactional loyalty has pretty well-known metrics around. We look at redemption rate versus points expired rate quite a bit. We hate to see people have points expire, right? We want them to use points for that next purchase. So, those are pretty standard metrics that we keep an eye on. I think the emotional loyalty side of things is actually the more valuable side of it from a lifetime value perspective. But how do you measure it? Refer a friend is maybe a good one. But it's really about engagement and, how many times do you come on the site, for example, did you get a personalized email that says, oh, this content, and you actually click through to the site. So it's a little bit harder to gauge and more on an objective level. But I think the value of the success of your program is pretty much more on the emotional loyalty side of things.
Yep.
Well, we could continue on this for a long time. We could dig down into very different subjects. But I think we're going to call it an afternoon. And I'd like to thank Mary, Hani, and Jody for joining us and investing your time and sharing your wisdom. The webinar will be recorded and we'll be distributing it in the next day or so. And we hope you are successful in progressing on your personalization journey.